all, Raphael X here with another video. Subscribe, click on the like button, all that good stuff. Share this video, leave a comment. You know what to do. All right, let's start with a prayer. In nomine Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Jesus. Santa Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right, so hope all are doing well. Today I want to talk a little bit about prophecy, but not so much about prophecy, but rather about Nostradamus, who is, I believe there's no official church position. I couldn't find any official position in the church. Some say he's deemed a heretic. Someone correct me on that. I couldn't find anything. The church condemnation towards Nostradamus, who lived in the 16th century, mid 16th century, and who in my view, from what I've researched, he was an authentic seer, and he had made many prophecies that had come true. Now, he has been purposely in his quartets, because he writes very poetically in a very veiled sense, right? He says he did that purposely, to write in a veiled sense, in a mysterious way, so that many, kind of like, he wouldn't be essentially, he wouldn't be brought in for those beliefs. He wouldn't get in trouble for those beliefs. But he said he could have mentioned certain events very concretely. So that's very interesting. So, astrology, today we think of it, and rightly so, in many aspects, like horoscopes. That is condemnable. I mean, that it does not please God. No good, right? Superstition. But astrology, traditionally, especially in those times, reading, right, the stars, the movement, the motion of the stars, the position of the stars, reading those, it was thought, and there was a lot of basis of this in science, that the stars influence events on the earth. So this does have a scientific history, excuse me, and some even proofs of this very interesting video about the position of stars when Christ was born, and how the position of stars has changed, but something special, of course, right? So Nostradamus used astrology to make some of his predictions. So in this video, we're going to talk about the three antichrists, and let me see, there's a lot of different articles here I want to share, and let's share this first one here. Nostradamus, share screen, technology, I love it. All right, Nostradamus, fearsome predictions of 2023, which include war and trips to Mars. He even he predicted cryptocurrency, even climate change. Well, at least his fascination for climate change, right? So this is him right here. These are some calamities going on the other side of this image. So he predicted many things, and again, in veiled language. It's very hard to tell at the moment of his predictions, before, right, the event occurs. It's hard to tell what is going to occur just from what he says. But once it happens, it falls in very nicely within the prophecy. So again, he talked in quartets, which is I believe 4 lines, if I'm not mistaken, 4 lines in a poetic way of speaking, and with profound meaning. All right, let's go back here, share screen, and here. Let's check out this article here. So we're going to kind of go around. Here's an article from, there's many articles on Marca. There's very interesting YouTube videos. Actually, the History Channel did a very interesting on the 3 antichrists. They have an interesting episode, about 45 minutes long, without commercials. You can get it on YouTube. This is from the New York Post. Nostradamus predictions for 2023: an antichrist arrives, World War III, and the monarchy dies. Let's read a little bit. Here's a picture of him right here. As the year comes to a close, it's time to talk doomsday forecasts, my babies, and no one grips us with grim, quite like Nostradamus. Kind of reading there. sometimes on the money, but more often than not muddily missing the mark. Our man's prophecies lean towards conflagration and catastrophe. He's referred to as the prophet of doom. Nostradamus' bleak worldview is believed to have been shaped by heavy dosages of the Old Testament and trauma of losing his wife and young children to illness, presumably the plague. Unable to cure the ones he loved the most, he seems to set out to forewarn the rest of us through his revelations of ruin. So a lot of people, because he is a prophet of doom, they kind of see him in a negative light, as if we should be totally optimistic, and this is absurd. All right, so the first Antichrist, right? The first Antichrist, no one would know this, obviously, before it actually happened, but pertains to Napoleon. He predicted where Napoleon was from, what he was going to do, how he was brutal, how he caused a lot of bloodshed, and how his own people, he's going to come up from a lowly class, and how really he was going to take on the church. And this happened. He imprisoned, it was Pius the second, or Paul. It was a Pius and a Paul, I believe. He imprisoned the Pope. So, and Napoleon himself had himself as a type of God, as a type of Messiah. Right. So first Antichrist fits very well with Napoleon. Second Antichrist, Hitler. Again, place of origin. He also said in a veiled language that he will convince many people by his tongue. Right. And Hitler definitely had this really strong influence orally on the people. I remember X saying that even through demonic powers, right? And maybe we can say, I don't know if he said this explicitly, but like a type of massive possession was caused through his preaching. A tremendous influence. People loved him to death. Nostradamus predicted this. He predicted essentially his downfall, that he would be too hungry for power, and that he would ultimately collapse, and the East will join with him. He says this. I don't want to read right now explicitly his prophecies, but I'm just going to mention them. The East will follow him, and this happened right with Japan in World War II. The Axis power, well, that's the first world, the Axis power. Well, it was the tripart, I think, I forget what it's called, but it was essentially Italy under Mussolini, Germany under the Nazis, of course, and Japan, Imperial Japanese, right? The three allied nations, right, against the free world. So we have those, the two Antichrists, and a third one apparently has not existed yet. Apparently. So let's get into it. There is an interesting book, and it has a chapter on the third Antichrist. So let me share the screen again. And this is very important because I think Nostradamus, having a good track record, is on point. We can use him, I'll mention this afterwards, actually. Let's go to this book right here. So this is a book on Nostradamus from Scrib. And here's the third Antichrist. And here, yes, I will read the obscure quartet, even though here I don't think it's a quartet. And maybe it was written as such, but at least here it just appears in 2 lines. I think quartet, and I forget exactly what it is in poetry, if it's 4 lines or with a certain number of syllables, but regardless. So right here it says, Mabus will soon die, and there will come terrible defeat for people and animals. Then suddenly one will see vengeance, hundreds suffer thirst and hunger. So this Mabus is thought to be the Antichrist. And some people say Mabus is interesting. If you just add an H at the end, and the Mabus, you turn it upside down, it would be J.G.W. Bush. So maybe it's a stretch. Again, it's veiled language, but maybe it's a stretch. By the way, Nostradamus did also predict 9/11 when he said in 1999, planes from the sky will crash and cause great calamity and destroy a great nation. So he did have veiled language for America. He called them um, something to do with like the eagles, since that is right. That's our national bird. So he called us the Eagle Land, right? These planes will come down in 1999, a great calamity. So if you turn it over 1999, it becomes uh, 1999. Now I'm having doubts here. No, I'm sorry. I think it said 1199. Well, either way, it becomes 9/11 1. Yeah, 1999. I forget how that works, but it was either way. It was a little bit of a stretch, but they made it that he predicted 9/11 2001. Again, a stretch. I don't know, but again, there is this veiled language here, right? This notion of this veiled language. That's not actually on the History Channel. You could check that one out on the Antichrist. All right. One of the aspects of history, past and future, in which Nostradamus made his name is his identification of Antichrist. And Antichrist is, in the most specific sense, someone who is against Christ, right? We know this. In a more poetic definition, and one that better suits the attitude of the 21st century, the Antichrist is essentially the epitome of evil, the devil incarnate, right? So Nostradamus identified Napoleon as Antichrist #1, largely because he was a character who he imagined would devastate the French monarchy. Hitler as Antichrist #2 for obvious reasons, and an individual named Mabus as #3. Hitler is actually mentioned explicitly. Well, I shouldn't say explicitly, but Nostradamus just does mention him as Hister. Hister. You just change one letter there. Well, and then you put one letter and then you switch them. It becomes Hitler. So he does talk about a Hister as the second Antichrist. Mabus is due to appear publicly, according to most interpretations of Nostradamus's expectations, during the early years of the 21st century. And he used astrology to predict the time also. During the early years of the 21st century, and to rise to power during the first years, he is said to appear from the Middle East and to have a tooth, or possibly two teeth, in the back of his throat. He rules through love, quote unquote, and dies at the hand of an assassin quite early in his career, but nevertheless creates some serious havoc along the way. Interesting. So he dies early, the third Antichrist. Could this be, it's going to say later in the text, could this be Osama bin Laden? Osama bin Laden, right? I want to say Obama, right? I remember I called Obama one time Osama, not to him, but talking about him. Osama bin Laden. Could that have been the third Antichrist? Well, I don't know. Let's continue reading here. Interesting stuff. Is this Osama bin Laden? It would be convenient to suppose so. Bin Laden, however, if we take Nostradamus to be our guide, does not, as far as we know, have any teeth in the back of his throat, and certainly does not take his position as one associated with love, except perhaps among his people, which according to Nostradamus is an essential aspect of his career. Okay, notion of love is definitely obscure nowadays. Almost every decade of the last half of the 20th century included candidates with this unpleasant character. We have Gaddafi in Libya, the Ayatollah, right, Saddam Hussein. Some people were thinking it might have been him. But it's interesting that they do say that the Antichrist does have to have a big army, does have to have massive influence, and a lot of power and respect, right? Which Saddam Hussein didn't have all those things. His army wasn't that big. What is most extraordinary is not the horrendous behavior of such individuals, though this in itself is about as disgusting as humanity can demonstrate, But the fact that the rest of us continue to allow a single human being to cause such destruction and such discomfort in the world, leaders appear from nowhere, and it is not until the situation is far beyond our control that these individuals demonstrate they are nothing much more than absurd criminals. You know what is interesting? I want to make a point here is that something's going to happen. You can tell that some leader is going to emerge, good or bad, because there is a lot of chaos on many different levels. On many different levels, there has to be an organizing principle in a leader, essentially. And this can be a good leader, and this can be a bad leader, but something's bound to happen, right? That's why I believe that Antichrist is close. Now, in Catholic teaching, we talk about one Antichrist, right? But this doesn't negate the possibility of there being different Antichrists. It doesn't negate it, right? And actually, it's mentioned that different Antichrists have come by, and Saint John says explicitly, "Whoever says that Jesus is not God is the Antichrist." Right? So there are Antichrists. There are multiple in a sense. All right. But there is the Antichrist, and this is the third one for sure. What this says about Antichrist is that we want them. We delude ourselves into believing them to be essential to their local environments politically, and by the time they have reached the top of the tree, it is too late to knock them down. So, of course, we want control, basically, is what he's saying here, this author. The name Mabus, given to the expected third Antichrist by Nostradamus, may be related to a character who lived at the same time as the prophet, not far from his home. Mabus was a well-known Dutch painter who settled in France and made a name for his work. The name Mabus, which the painter took from the village he lived in, means bad place. Maubus, yeah, bad place. Interesting. Given all the complexities and names giving Nostradamus used for his prophecies, this interpretation seems fairly typical, that the third Antichrist is not a person, but a time and a place that are bad, maybe our time and place. So this is an interesting interpretation, not my view, but interesting, saying maybe it is something obscure, something abstract, like a time and a place, because that's what Malchus means in Latin. The idea of the third Antichrist not being a single individual, as the others too proved to be, fits well with many other predictions that the prophet made about our particular era, the era of the 20th century, which has seen from the 16th century, must clearly have appeared a time of permanent and tragic war. From World War I through World War II, Korea and Vietnam, the wars in Israel and Palestine, the Yugoslav struggles, Afghanistan, etc., etc. Nonstop conflict through virtually the whole century and into this century, which we dearly hope will not be the same. There have been so many single individuals who fit the title Antichrist that it seems we might want to stop looking for scapegoats for our absurd behavior and start to see that we, each and every one of us, are responsible for what is happening. Okay, interesting. So this author is a little bit going on a tangent. Definitely, I don't hold his view. Interesting position, but no, the Antichrist will come. The Antichrist, which is the third Antichrist, and this is just one interpretation for Nostradamus. There are many, but there is one, and Nostradamus has a good track record. He has a good track record. He's an authentic seer. He has predicted many other things that has happened. He has even said, talked about Pope Francis. Let's talk about that actually a little bit, and then I want to end with a new Nostradamus out there. So we're going to going everywhere here with Nostradamus because there's just too much to be said. Here with the Pope. This is the one with here, right here with the Pope here. And this is from Republic World article here. New Pope, according to Nostradamus, 2023 will bring in a new Pope this year. 2023 will bring in a new Pope. But Pope Francis will be the last true pope. So this next pope will be an anti-pope. And this is interesting because this actually falls according to the prophecies of Malachi. I believe Pope Francis would be the last one, right? Or was it Pope Benedict? No, Pope Francis was supposed to be the last one. So it fits nicely with the prophecies of Saint Malachi. With his replacement, Peter, creating a scandal that will bring down the Roman Catholic Church. Of course, this is what appears to the eye. This is not what actually happens, right? This is just an appearance because the Church is of Christ. The Church cannot be brought down, right? Let's make that clear. In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will be Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the 7 hills city will be destroyed, and a dreadful judge will judge the world. The end, he wrote. And this is exactly in line with Malachi, right? With what Saint Malachi said. Saint Malachi was a bishop. What he said, Bishop of Ireland, in Ireland. And this is what he said, that there will be, the next pope will be an impostor, an anti-pope. And then we'll have Peter the Roman. He also talks about, and this others have said this, he has prophesied the king, a very strong Catholic king, who will also promote the diffusion of Catholicism, the spread of Catholicism. All right, and lastly, I want to talk about a neo-Nostradamus. This is really interesting. I don't know if you can see this picture here. This is a neo-Nostradamus, and obviously not Catholic. Now, prophecies can be given. I mean, usually they're within the church. There are gifts outside of the church that come from the church and bring back to the church, right? But there can be gifts outside the visible boundaries of the church, right? This new Nostradamus is not Catholic, so there could be gifts outside the visible boundaries of the church, even though they really come from the Catholic Church, and they're supposed to bring people back to the Catholic Church. But what happens here is that maybe it could be, now prophecy is a gift from God, but the devil, who cannot he cannot prophesy. The devil, no, he doesn't know the future. The devil is so smart and cunning that he can deduce certain truths. And actually, certain philosophers have tried to debunk all prophecies, saying that they're all deductions. They're just really smart deductions. You can just tell it's going to happen. And there's some truth to that. That obviously, you can predict something because you're reading the signs of the times, right? Kind of like though it's getting cloudy, it's going to rain. But so this could be the case here, that maybe this is the devil, animating this man, this neo-Nostradamus, who's not Catholic, and he is so-called prophesizing, but not actually doing that, but rather deducing the future. I say this because he has said certain things that have come true, and let me show you what exactly. All right, so this is the man. I don't even know if he's Hindu. He appears in another article here. The picture didn't come out. He appears with, here it is, some paint. I don't know if he's his own type of, he made up his own type of cult or something, but some type of religious markings, we could say. So let's say the man dubbed, this is from the Lad Bible. The man dubbed as a new Nostradamus has made yet another terrifying claim, saying that a plane crash this year will spark World War III, 2023. The new Nostradamus, known by his name Craig Hamilton Parker, sounds very American, has terrified the world after correctly predicting Queen Elizabeth II's death last year. I mean, she was pretty old, right? So the psychic has now envisioned a horrific plane crash in Taiwan, which he believes could spark the beginning of World War III later this year. Hamilton Parker has explained his premonition, saying a collision will happen, either between two planes or two submarines. Talking with the Daily Star, Mr. Hamilton Parker said that the upcoming incident will cause a much bigger conflict involving China and Russia, becoming the most serious thing for the next coming 2 years. He continued by saying, I've been saying for some time that I felt that would be a conflict, or there would be a conflict over Taiwan, which I think is going to happen this year. I think we're going to get an accidental conflict in some respects because we're going to have something like a freak collision or incident. The terrifying prediction is said to involve either submarines hit each other or airplanes clipping each other, somebody that triggers it off and it starts to get out of control. You have seen this in, with Russia and the US, or Iran and other countries, China and the US or another country, that ships have nearly collided. Right, this has happened. This was on the news not too long ago, so it's something that is at least feasible. Finish this article, then we'll finish this video. Tensions have reached now heights between China and Taiwan, as China's claiming Taiwan to be part of its territory, while Taiwan claims its independence as a nation. Hamilton Parker has scarily predicted that this pending war could even make the horrific war between Ukraine and Russia seem small. The man dubbed the new Nostradamus ad, I feel is going to be a serious problem. Ukraine will pale in significance compared to this. I feel, according to his words, I feel also that Russia will side with China to become a pariah state in that respect, because it will egg on China and make matters worse. So that's my main concern. Ultimately, it works out well, though. I feel it ends up with a new China that's broken up into multiple countries rather than one big China. There's already a lot of division in China, so this could be a deduction. The original French astrologer Nostradamus also predicted that a great war would take place soon, although they don't refer to specific dates in time. But with the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine and China and Taiwan, it's possible that a larger incident could break out in not too far future. Nostradamus wrote back in 1555 in his book of predictions, 7 months great war, people dead through evil, Rouen, Evero shall not fall to the king. So these are places in French, which again, kind of cryptic language. Not sure what it means, and no one knows what it means until the thing, the event happens, and people say, "Oh, look how nicely it fits into it." Could there be some subjectivity? There could, but I mean, come on, it's just it gets to a point where coincidences, mere coincidence, cannot be the explanation. All right, so let us always, trust in our Blessed Mother, trust in our Lord, that the only reason we look into these things is to kind of incite us to live a spiritual life. As I mentioned before, our world's going to end. Individually, we will die. So it makes no sense worrying too much, looking too much into these things. Let me do it for you. Looking too much into these things, and not caring so much about my individual spiritual life. Right. So that's an issue. All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. As I said, it could be mere deductions on the part of the new Nostradamus. Nostradamus, no, too many coincidences, but the new Nostradamus could be a mere logical deduction, and also a spiritual deduction. I mean, war is the fruit of sin. So if Our Lady of Fatima said in 1917 that a worse war will come out if people do not convert, then today people are much less converted. What will not happen, right? Tremendous war. War is the fruit of sin, right? And the world is definitely ripe for another tremendous chastisement of God, right? Which is always medicinal. It's therapeutic. Right? That's important to know. God chastises us because he loves us, to bring us to heaven. Because his main goal is to do whatever he can do, whatever he has to do in order for us to be saved. Right? Let us not forget about our salvation, so we can avoid the upcoming chastisements, right, as much as we can. All right. Well, take care, all. God bless, and see you next time.